Hey everybody, and welcome back to Creating Hanley. I am Kimberly, your host here at Creating Hanley, and in today's episode, we are making this 12.5-inch block called Crossroads in Life. And it is from this book, Quiltmaker's 1000 Blocks. It is on page 384, Crossroads in Life. We already did this Starfire, last episode, so we already did this one. Now we're moving on to this one. So maybe we'll do this one and maybe we'll do this one. I don't know. But we're doing our So a Year Full of Stars 2 in 2025. And so we're going to do this star block called Crossroads in Life. And we really need 5 colors. So let's just jump right into it. These are the sizes and the colors. I'm just going to put this right here. You can read that, pause the video if you need to. And the colors that I used are pretty close, almost spot on. And then this is the directions on how they tell you how to put it together, but I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. And then this is the picture that they use to help you with that as well. So block assembly. So I will show you I will tell you the mistakes I made on this block. I really only made one mistake, but this is relatively easy. So let's break it down real quick. So you already got your fabric picked out and you got your fabric cut to the sizes that you need, right? So this block right here, let's put this on point this way. So once you put it on point, and if you're new to quilting, on point means turn it at a diagonal or at a diamond so that the square points up and down, side to side, instead of square like this. And it is a beautiful sunny day, so I have the window open, and it might be bad for the film, but I just needed the sunshine today. So so it might look a little washed out or whatever, but we're gonna go with it, okay? So this means on point. So if you put the square on point, you'll see that this inner square, see if I can get my directions right here. This inner square is now square, not, 90 degrees squared up, if you know what I mean, flat. Anyway, once you have this big square made, and this is really easy, once you have this big square made, all you have to do is make these 4 point units, corner units, and that's it. And then once you do these units, you just sew them to this big inner square here, and then you're done. It's really that simple. There's more cutting involved, but once you cut the squares, we're going to make some half square triangles, which is what this unit is, a half square triangle, a half square triangle. So see, like all you need is a couple pieces of fabric, and then you make your half square triangles. This is a quarter square triangle. We did this in a different episode. Oh, I forget when. It was either 2023 or 2024. But I talked in length about quarter square triangles, and then you put it to a half square, and then you get a block, right? Then you get a block like this. It looks exactly like this. Okay? This is going to be super easy. So without talking about how easy it is, let's get into it. So once you have your squares cut, let me take you down here. There is some prep that you're going to do. Now here's the mistake that I made. I only did this once, but I cut 2 of the big blue ones and only 1 of the little blue ones. And what happened then is, because the little blue ones you need for these corners, but instead of cutting another square, what I did was I just used this big square because it's super easy. All you have to do, instead of cutting, let me back up. For these corner squares, you're gonna cut these 2 little ones in half to make this triangle, right? Well, instead, I used the big one, the extra one that I cut, and then I just cut it into quarters to have a triangle like this. Now this triangle is too big. However, I'd rather have a big triangle that's bigger than smaller. And then you put it on here and you see how it's extra big? And then you just trim that off. When you put your 12.5-inch ruler on it to square everything up, you just trim that big stuff off. It was super easy. So that was the mistake that I made. So I just throw this to the floor. I think in every episode I throw something to the floor. And that's it. Okay? So, what I will say is always use a scant 1/4-inch seam allowance. Scant 1/4-inch seam allowance. That means you're using 1/4-inch, but just a little bit less. And that will give you enough, give you enough space so that your square doesn't end up wonky or too small. Now mine, in one of these parts right here, you can see that's probably a 1/4-inch right there, too small. So I may have to see, this was fine, but then this got a little wonky. I may have to trim this down to 12 inches to make it like super squared up, but I'm just gonna leave it as is. And if I put a border on here, I'm gonna have to accommodate for this spot right here, because if I use a 1/4-inch seam allowance, this part right here is not gonna get caught in there. So that's a mistake too that you need to look out for. Okay? All right. Let's get into it. So, the first thing you want to do is make this inner square, because this is super easy. And then once you make this, you're going to build the corners around it, okay? So let's do that right now. So this video might get a little bit long. I hope not, but if you're new to sewing, so here's why it takes me a little bit of extra time to get through to stuff, because I always want to accommodate for new sewers, new sewists, new quilters. And if you're not new to quilting, then you already know this stuff. But if you're new to quilting, I want to make sure that I cover like basic stuff, like, and if you have to like work through a problem, I want to give you some instruction to work through problems. So yeah, so if you're not new to sewing, a lot of this stuff is going to be easy, or not new to quilting. Now sewing can include clothing, like costumes and other types of sewing that I don't do. So I say sewing in general, but I really mean quilting, because I'm not a apparel. I'm not very good at that. Anyway, let's get on to the crossroads of life, shall we? So you want to take your two gold big squares and your two blue and red squares, or one red and one blue square. Okay? Now, we're going to put them face side together, and I'm going to flip the gold side upward so that I can draw my line on it. So I'm going to take my flat edge, and I'm going to take my writing utensil, and now, again, here's one of these little tips. If you already know how to do this, then you know how to do this. But if you're brand new, let me help you out, okay? So I'm going to take the camera down here, and I'm going to show you. When you are right at the edge, you don't want to put your pencil, or actually, let's start with the straight edge. You don't want to put your straight edge right on the corner, because when you put your pencil line there, or whatever you're using, the pencil line is going to be off just a little bit out to the side. So the pencil line is not going to hit directly in the center of that point. So what I like to do is put my writing utensil right at the center of the point, and then butt up my flat edge against that. Now you'll notice it's not on that corner. That's to accommodate for the space of the lead point. And your lead point can be different. It can be flat, it can be super pointy, it could be a pen. It could be one of these things. So it doesn't matter. This method will accommodate for all of them. So you put your pencil here, butt up against your flat edge, up against that, and then gently release and go up here and do the same thing and butt up. So I'm right here, You can see I just butt up my flat edge against that. I come back down here to make sure. Is that right? Is that right? Yes. And then I draw my line. And because my fabric is a little bit darker, I'm going to use a little bit darker of a line. Now I could use black pen if I wanted to, like ink pen. I can use, you know, a color like this is purple. You know, whatever works on your fabric. That's why I wanted to go to the lightest color fabric and not the blue, because that's going to be very difficult to see this line. Now, this is not the line that we are going to sew on. This is going to be our guide. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side of this line. I'm sorry, not either, on both sides of the line. Okay, so proper English, I guess, is both sides of the line. On either side, yes, but on both sides. Okay, so this is just going to be our guide, and then we're going to sew 1/4 inch on both sides. Then this line becomes the cut line. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for both the blue and the red. Oh, I don't know what. I'm using batik, and so sometimes it doesn't matter which side is up and which side is down. Sometimes even the back of the batiks might look a little bit better than the front. So whatever type of fabric you're using, figure out your front and put both front faces together. And then the backs are on the back. You know, the back should be showing up. And I'm going to do my pencil method and draw on the line. Okay, now I'm going to take these both to the sewing machine. And again, this is going to be the what am I saying? The guide line. All right, and I'm just doing a 1/4 inch straight stitch. And then without cutting my thread, I just twirl that around and reset and do both sides. And again, I don't need to lift that up. I can take the next piece, this is called chain piecing, and take that right to the machine. Same thing, 1/4 inch, even a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, I don't know if you can see that very well. And then swing that around. And then this I can potentially cut. Where are my scissors? Here they are. Okay. There you go. Great. Now I take this apart and then I cut on that line. And you can use scissors or you can use the rotary blade, whatever works for you. And then once you have this, take this over to your hot iron and then iron that open. Now, if you want to, you can iron the seams open if you so desire. I can't even, most of the time I don't, because I can't even get the seams apart to do that. So I just give up and then I just iron to the darkest side. If you can at all times, you want to iron your seams to the darkest side. Okay? And where did the blue go? Where did my blue go? Here we go. So we're going to do the same. Trim any excess thread. Like if you want to, you can trim this excess thread right here. And then, so we call this setting the seam. And then gently finger press it open. So as, remember, this is a bias, and if you press it too much, you can see the fabric shifts. So you don't want to do that to your fabric. That's how wonkiness happens. So you just set your seam, and then you gently roll that back, open it up, and then press. You don't want to be shifting your fabric around too much because that, again, makes for wonkiness. It shifts the fabric. It shifts the threads in your fabric. My stuff usually ends up wonky anyway, so I just have come to the realization that my stuff is wonky. All right, so there we go. So now we have half square triangles in red and gold and blue and gold. And then we're going to place these in an hourglass position, like so. Like this. Up, 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 with the color points pointing inward. Look, and they came together already. And then what I like to do before I sew them together is trim off these dog ears, because to me this adds too much craziness, and I don't need to be confused anymore. It adds bulk, too much fabric to your corners, and we don't need the extra fabric because it adds it can add a little bit of wonkiness there too. So let's just do this, this, and this. All right, now we got that. Now we're just going to flip these over, and we're going to sew on both of these sides. Just 1/4 inch, scant 1/4 inch. Now also what I like to do is, if your seams are opposite each other, then you can line these up, just nest. Now because because I put the seams to the dark side, the seams are both going in the same direction. Now at this point, you have the option, if you want to iron one of these open to the other side. And maybe I'll do that just for giggles. I did not do that in my sample. I just ironed everything to the dark side, and it turned out great. However, it does get a little bit bulky in one section. So, and because you already ironed that, you might want to add a little bit of extra steam or water just to ease that fabric over to the other side, because you already told it to go one way and now you're telling it to go a different way, and it wasn't prepared for that. So now I want to make sure I have this in the right position. So I am realigning this up, and because now my seams are in opposite directions, I'm able to nest these together. And when I do that, you can see right in here, the fabric, the gold and the blue and the red, they line up great, okay? The gold and the blue and the red and the blue. Look at that line right there. That lines up perfectly. So now I know my seams are nested, and I will have a perfect point in the center. But I also want to check on the back end too to make sure that is lined up, and you can see it is. So I'm good to sew along this colored edge here, a scant 1/4 inch. Good. And then the same thing here, if I want to. And you know what? I did on the other one, so let's do this one as well. All right. Now, I want to make sure these are in the same position, and I hope this will turn out in the right way. We'll see. I might have to rip out some threads, but we'll see. So again, boop, nice, lines up. Okay. Scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Great. Now, if this video gets a little bit long and you're bored of, some stuff because it already makes sense to you and you already know how to do certain things, then just fast forward through that. All right, now let's see if I did this right. Yeah, there we go. Good. Now all we need to do is put these two together, line up these seams, and again, my seams are opposite, so I can nest these seams. Make sure it is right all the way in the back as well, because that's where things get wonky. You want this line to be straight. Okay. And then if you want to, at this point, you can trim this up. If you feel like the fabric is too wonky or like it stretched or whatever, you can trim up your fabric and just do a straight line, and then that way you know when you guide it through your foot right here that it'll be straight. And you know what? Just like I think I'm gonna do that. So let's show you how to do that. You already know how to do that. I don't need to show you, but let's just do it just for giggles. I'm gonna make sure that this line is, that these seams are nested. Everything is right. And then I'm just gonna take this seam line right here, this seam line, and I'm using this thread as my guide right on my measuring board here. I'm lining that up flat, and then I'm gonna line up a measure with that as well. And let's see, what measure am I gonna use? I'm gonna use 6.5 inches. So I want to make sure that that thread is straight on 6.5 inches. I'm just throwing out a number. It doesn't have to be that for you, but I'm just going to use 6.5 inches. And then I'm going to take it out to the edge of the smallest part, which is right here. And I know this thread line is lined up at a number, happens to be 6.5 inches, and then so that means it should be flat. Now I'm going to do that one more time just to make sure you measure twice and cut once. Something seems to be just a little bit off. Now I have it on 5 inches. It doesn't matter. I'm using a straight line. Straight across. Okay. Now that didn't get much. And you might not get much. All right, there we go. Okay. So, now on this, you can see a little bit of red. You can see the blue is a little bit wonky, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to follow. So for here, I'm just going to follow this straight line. It happens to be red, and then it goes to blue, and then here's blue underneath the red. So I'm just going to follow this straight line. I know I just trimmed it up, so this is a flat edge. So I hope that helps some people. They don't know what line to follow. You just created your own line to follow. Okay? So let's take this back over to the machine. And if you want to, you can stick some pins in it so the fabric doesn't shift. But I'm just going to take it right to the machine. And I already have an issue. This happens this is starting to happen every time I'm on camera now. That the thread from the top needle comes out. So I'm just going to leave this little piece in here, but I'm just going to trim off this extra thread. Trim off the extra thread. I go to the other side. Now, while I'm doing this, let me tell you about my friend Alex over at Living and Crafting with MS. My friend Alex has a channel, Living and Crafting with MS, and she will do this star too, but she does it in a different way. So check out her channel. She might be able to give you an instruction that makes more sense if something doesn't make sense over here. All right, so let's get back to this block. And let's see if we did it in the center. And there it goes. It's perfect in the center. All four of those corners met up perfectly. Look at that. Very nice. And now we have that block that I was talking about in the very beginning. All right. Now you want to trim off any extra threads that are hanging out. And then if you want, you can open the seam here because this middle part has a lot of fabric and thread met up in the middle. Or you can simply do what I'm going to do and just iron it to one side. Now I believe on my sample one, the first one I made, I did open up the center because it was so bulky. But sometimes the fabric just wants to do whatever it wants to do. And if it's easier for this way, then just do it this way. Okay? If it's easier, if it opens up nicely, then great. And if you're struggling with the fabric and you're really getting frustrated, just whatever. Just let it do its thing. Okay? Don't fight the fabric. You can tease the fabric, you can massage the fabric, but don't fight the fabric because you're not going to be happy. All right, so, okay, so now we have that part. The middle's done. Now we have to make the corners. They're actually, I call them the corners, but they're on these sides, okay? So, let's go back to our desk and design our star. Now, we have to start cutting some triangles. Okay, so, let's just cut these right up front. We basically put these on very last. But just place both of your smaller blue stars on top, or squares on top of each other. And then you're just going to cut one diagonal line. So you should have two of these little 2 7/8 squares in the blue. And again, like with the pencil line, you're going to do the same thing. Don't line it up straight on. Make sure that when you cut, your line is right down the center. Now you have 4 of these triangles. Make sure your face sides are up. Set them aside. We don't need those until the very end. Okay. Now let's look at these creams. We need to place our creams on top of each other, and we're going to cut diagonals on the cream. Okay? So what that's going to create is 8 triangles. 8 triangles. And if you have your twirly mat, use your twirly mat. Okay, now, bingo. We have 8 triangles. Set these aside for now. Now the other thing that we need to cut is our red square. This red square. Okay, so we're going to cut this in 4 triangles as well. Great. Now we can set these aside. And then our green. Get your green. So you should have 1 of the large green square and 2 of the small green squares. Take your small green squares, stack them on top of each other. And the same thing, you're going to cut 1 diagonal on the small green. And with the large green, you're going to cut this into 4 triangles. So 2 cuts diagonal. Bingo. All right. Now that should be all your fabric. All your fabric is taken care of. All the squares that you cut. Okay. So we're going to add these triangles onto these squares. So basically, your whole your whole star here, your whole star block is triangles. These are all triangles on this star block. Okay. Now, It doesn't really matter how you do this. If you want to, so I'm going to put it on point like this towards me. And I don't know, the best way to do this is, let's start with the red triangles. Okay, so we'll start with the red triangles, put the flat part right in the center, and the red pointing outwards. Okay, that makes it really easy, good place to start. And then take your small green triangles, and we are going to place those with a short side. So when you look at the triangle, you're going to place your short side against the red, and then the long side should be away, if that makes sense. So when you look at this, if I turn this towards you, this is a long flat edge. That is what you want to create, okay? So I'm going to take this back here. So now you have that long flat edge here. This long flat edge is going against a cream triangle, and that size should match, okay? So the cream triangle, the point comes in and the flat edge goes out. Now, yeah, let's just do that, okay? So you can do the same thing to the other side. Well, let's just finish our green triangles. Wait, what am I doing here? Like this. No, like this. Okay. Wait, what am I doing? Why is this? No, that's right. Okay, so the triangle points in. Wow, I'm just confusing myself. What is going on here? Okay. So all the triangles should look the same. So if I do this and then this. Yes, that's right. Okay. Wow. I'm really confusing myself right now. Yeah, don't confuse yourself. Okay. And then the green goes on the opposite side. So, okay. Oh my, that was a little confusing for me. Just because I'm kind of looking at it upside down and it's, yeah, confusing. So anyway, take the bigger green squares and the longer edge, place that against the green and the red. Now everything's not gonna match up perfectly because it's not sewn together. So again, the green up here, the green and the red, and over here, the green and the red. Now, if you take this away, this is a box. This is a new square, okay? This creates a new square. So there should be green on both sides of the red. Green on both sides of the red. And then you can add your cream triangles. Now, do you see how that creates that top up there? So you want the pointy edge of the triangle. So I look at the triangle, I want the pointy edge of the triangle to the inside. And the flat edge is on the outside. Pointy edge on the inside of the fabric. Pointy edge to the inside. Pointy edge in, and point in. Okay? Now, to top it off, you can put the small blue triangles on the top of the green with the point out, because this makes the corners of your square now. Boom, like that, okay? Yeah, now that comes together, right? You can see that. Let me grab the finished one. So you can see how that becomes this. Okay. So let's do a unit. Let's take this one apart and let's just do this unit. All right. Now let's pull this apart. The first thing I want to do sew the red and the green together. So I'm going to take this over to the machine and bring you with me. And because I want a flat edge through, I'm going to flip it over. And sew along scant quarter inch. Now, if I wanted to do the whole thing, I would just chain piece. But look, we've just created a triangle that matches the exact same size of the triangle that we're going to attach this to with, or attach this to. So here's a green triangle. See, this is the exact same size. Okay? So we want to do that. We want to attach this triangle to this one. Now, I have to cut this little piece off. This is bothering me. It just drives me crazy. So I need to get rid of that. And I also need to iron this down more flat because I have to work with flat fabric. It just really bothers me if I'm not working with flat fabric. So face side up, face side up. Let's place this triangle on top of the triangle we just made. Should have a flat surface, right? And follow that cutting edge or the flat. Now, you know what? I'm going to have a mistake if I don't do this. So let's use a leader. Be very careful because this is a biased edge. And again, the biased edge can stretch. And now we open this up. Our triangle looks like this. Or our square looks like this. Okay? But when you look at the red, you want to have both green on both sides of the red. Both of these green triangles on both sides of the red short angle. Okay? This is the long angle of the red triangle. I hope that makes sense. All right. Because sometimes I like over-explain things and then it becomes like complicated and weird and it doesn't need to. All right. So there's this square right here. Now we need to add the cream triangles. Remember, this goes in towards the long edge. So we have to make sure that these cream triangles, they point towards the red. Okay? I hope that makes sense, or they point in. So this creates a flat surface all the way across. Let's show you here. Flat surface all the way across. So now what I'm going to do is place my triangle this way, my cream triangle this way, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this line right here. So consider these like bat wings or something. These are the wings of the bat. So they're closed right now, but when you take them out, then they open. I know, corny, right? I know, corny. Okay, same here. Scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. And make sure underneath, if you find that your seam is like flipping over, then stop the machine and flip that seam back the other way. All right, and again, here we go. It should look like this. So I'm going to iron this open so I have flat fabric to work with. Flat fabric. My seams are now flat. All right, there's that. Now we need to add the top, the little hat, the blue triangle. Face side down. Try to line it up. So what I do is I line up this point, the blue point with the red point. I want to make sure that that creates a little square right there so that it should be even on both sides. Should be. And then scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Great. Now you open that up, and now you've just created another corner. This is a corner. And a triangle. Voila. Now take your center, and this is going to be your corner. So this is why you created that flat edge right here, that flat edge, because now you're going to flip that here on one of these sides of your square, and you want to make sure a 1/4 inch is hanging over on both sides. And you also can line this up a couple of different ways. You line up the point right here, this red point, with this seam. So you can line that up here. And then also line up this point with the seam as well. And if you need to, you can trim a line, make it straight. Okay, so I'm just going to double check. That didn't shift. Great, and then I just take it over to the machine. And so a scant 1/4 inch all the way down, making sure your seams. Now underneath my seam is flipping. I want to make sure that it stays flat, and I want it in the direction that it should be laying, that I ironed it to. There we go. Awesome. Great. And now there's that corner. Now it looks like a house. So you just make 3 more of these units and place them all the way around. And now you have created this star. The Crossroads in Life star block for March 2025. Have fun with this, guys. That's all I'm going to do right now. Check out Alex's Living and Crafting with MS channel. And she might have some extra pointers, or she might show you another way how to do this that might make more sense. Okay, so this is what we have so far. And when you turn it on point, boop, it looks exactly like this. All right, folks, have a good day. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.